we'll give it just a minute, and then we'll. Oliver Gasswint, right?
Correct.
Larry Kiley, Oliver.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Give us your full name.
Oliver J. Gasswint.
And the J just stands for J.
And so I often had to indicate I-O initial only.
Yeah.
I get arguments out of the military otherwise.
Good. And your date of birth's when?
March 8th, 1925.
And you were born in?
In Abilene, Kansas.
You were born in Abilene, but you actually lived in...
Most of my young years at Enterprise, Kansas, where I went through high school.
Which is just a jump down the east of down the road.
6 miles east
6
of
miles,
Abilene.
yeah. You graduated from high school at Enterprise?
Yes.
And from high school, you went to the military.
Right. In fact, instead of waiting for the draft, which was going to catch me right away, I volunteered.
You volunteered for the
And
service.
my twin brother volunteered a short time later.
That's phenomenal, really. You were sworn in. You told me where you were sworn in at.
Fort Leavenworth, as I recall.
Okay. Which is, again, just up the road from Enterprise.
Well, it's near Kansas City, actually.
Right, near Kansas City, just north of Kansas City.
Right.
You told me your service number, and that was what?
375-27-7247.
And you were in the U.S. Army?
Right.
And you went to boot camp. Where'd you go to boot camp at?
Camp Maxey, West Texas, near Abilene.
How long were you there?
Through basic training. I had an experience there. I had 2 high school classmates that were in a infantry outfit there, and one of them made a comment one day when I was visiting them. They said, "We're sure happy we're not with the medics. Your basic training is a lot tougher than ours," and that was a surprise to me.
You didn't know that, huh?
No, we just did the 25-mile full pack hikes and hikes and that sort of thing, and thought it was part of the routine.
How many weeks were you there?
Gosh, I don't recall what basic training was in those days. After all, that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah, a lot of years ago. When you successfully completed boot camp at Camp Maxey in Texas, and you went on to further training.
Yes.
At where?
Atlanta, Georgia, at Lawson General Hospital.
Was that a civilian hospital?
No, military.
It was a military hospital.
It was like the military hospital or the VA hospital in Wichita.
Okay.
Large unit, and it was tech training, medical tech training.
Okay. So you were training up to be a combat corpsman.
Right. We call it medic.
Right. Yeah. I was in the Navy, so.
Right. I understand.
So, how long was that? Do you remember how long the school that was for? Because that's pretty intense. That's a pretty intense field.
Yes, it was. It was at least, I'd say, 2 months.
And when you're there going to the medical training there, are you also doing medical training in the field?
No, that was strictly classroom type. Of course, it was hands-on. You worked on each other.
Oh, okay.
Giving shots and all that sort of thing.
Okay, okay. So if you hurt me, I'll hurt you back.
I guess so.
Whenever you completed that course at the hospital in Lawson General Hospital in Georgia, did you go back to the field then for like advanced infantry training or advanced medical training in the field?
No.
You went straight to...
Went to the South Pacific. Yes.
South Pacific.
Yes.
And you have a list there that you've made some notes on, Oliver. That is may I see it?
Sure. sure.
It's almost like the who's who. Are these places where you were?
Yes.
Okay. You were in New Guinea.
I was in Papua New Guinea briefly and served with an infantry unit up in the Owenstanley Mountains. Fortunately, combat activities had ceased at that time, and as soon as they had a need for me elsewhere, I went from there to Bougainville, the Solomon Islands, and joined the 37th Infantry Division. Incidentally, the shoulder patch of the 37th was a red bullseye.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Yes.
I've seen it. How long were you in Bougainville?
Not too long. From there we went to Ulithi Atoll, and that's when the invasion fleet formed up for Luzon, Philippines.
At Bougainville, were they still fighting there? I'm going to backtrack on you here.
It was, well, there were still some fighting, but very little. There were quite a few Japanese in the interior, and they just kind of isolated them and used it as a stepping stone then.
Okay. Just isolated them and left them alone. And it was,
right.
They weren't going to go anywhere, and they weren't going to get
right.
supplies.
General MacArthur was noted for skipping islands, just isolating.
Right. Right.
Fortunately, and that saved a lot of lives by not fighting every island on the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do you pronounce it?
Ulithi?
Ulithi?
Yes.
It's Ulithi.
Yes.
Atoll.
Atoll, yeah. Large anchorage.
Okay. And you told me about a friend of yours.
Within view of my ship was the USS Rocky Mountain. It was a radio communication ship, and it was the one that guided and engineered the whole invasion on Luzon. I happened to have a high school classmate that was a radio man on that ship, and I was fortunate in getting leave to go on the launch over to the Rocky Mountain, and I spent Christmas with my friend. Incidentally, I enjoyed the ice cream and the clean sheets and that sort of thing that we didn't have in the foxholes.
Well, they always said we got the gravy, so.
Well, and the hot food.
Yeah, the hot food that wasn't hard to take either, was it? So that Ulithi, you almost had a piece of home really for Christmas there, because you had a buddy from home.
Sure did.
And had a good meal, and
right.
And at least you got to enjoy the day.
I sure did.
At Luzon in the Philippines, I was telling you that I had an uncle that his itinerary looked almost identical.
Is that right?
He was in Luzon.
First
He was
cavalry?
a cook. He was a cook.
Oh.
And in the first Cav.
Yes.
And
well acquainted with him.
And he was a mess sergeant.
Yeah. Yes, we made the beachhead on Lingayen Gulf, north part of the island. Fortunately, there was very little opposition to the beachhead. And then it was simply firefights from there all the way to Manila, just delaying actions on the part of the Japs. And then it all hell broke loose. Manila was the only large city fighting in the South Pacific. And that's where you're fighting from building to building, room to room, floor to floor. And it's a nasty deal. There was a lot of that in Europe.
Yes, taking the towns and
right.
villages and small areas over there.
Interesting, I'll digress here. Our first night in the outskirts of Manila, we dug in the grounds of the Balintawak beer brewery. And somebody shook me by the shoulders. Want a cold beer? What are you talking about? Come on. And he led me over to the cold room, and these big vats there, and somebody pulled the plug on one of those. And I think beer was ankle deep on that floor.